Welcome, Climate Viewers. This is Jim Lee from ClimateViewer News at ClimateViewer.com. The climate strike, Greta Thunberg, and climate extremism or climate propaganda has really gotten out of hand. So I'd like to talk to you today about real climate change, why it matters, and hopefully we can get some of this sorted out, because I see a lot of shenanigans going on, and I've seen a lot of funny stuff over the weekend. And I just wanted to wrap my head around all of this before I gave you my full report. So I'd like to first point out, if you're new here, if you're, watching this on Periscope or DLive, my main YouTube channel is Jim Lee ClimateViewer. If you search for me on YouTube, just type in ClimateViewer, all one word, and you'll find my channel. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. It may not work. We all know how that goes. I have a comment from DLive. Climate change or climate control? I say don't blame climate change, blame the climate changers. And that's what I've focused 10 years on geoengineering and weather modification. You can see that at weathermodificationhistory.com. Everything you're about to see is free of charge, open source, and you're allowed to download this video and do whatever you like with it. And I appreciate everybody who supports me on patreon.com/climateviewer by giving a monthly donation or a one-time donation on PayPal. I got word that the GoFundMe is not working anymore, so I'm obviously going to have to remove that from this infographic. But regardless, your donations help me keep this ship floating. 3 websites, 10 years, and many streams going. So let's jump right into it. All right, so the climate strike was supposed to be a global fight back against climate change. And if you haven't seen it, it was at climatestrike.net. The global strike is happening now. #climate strike. Well, I titled this video Climate Strikeout. And the reason should be pretty obvious by the end of it. And good evening to everybody over in YouTube chat and Facebook, DLive, Periscope, all you. Love you, mean it. So it kind of comes as a punch to the gut that right in the middle of all of this happened September 20th through 27th, that the World Meteorological Organization Secretary General comes out and basically says, hey guys, the world's not going to end and you guys are really losing your freaking minds. And this absolutely made my day. I'll be quite honest with you about it. And I'll give credit where credit is due. This was originally brought to my attention by Suspicious Observers. He did a video on it right here, and
has been more.
Right there at UN stuns world on eve of largest climate events ever. If you guys haven't heard of Suspicious Observer, go give him a subscribe. Head of key meteorological organization slams climate extremists in unprecedented move. And I just, I was just overwhelmed with joy when I saw this, to be quite honest with you, because most of us who follow climate change, at least the IPCC version of it, and have some scientific understanding whatsoever. I'm no scientist, but it does not take a scientist with a PhD to understand this stuff. It's not that hard. It just takes a little bit of effort. Understand that the level of propaganda surrounding all of this has gotten out of hand. So I'd like to point out, some of the irony here, and I'd like to thank Peteri Talas, I believe that's his name. Petri, I don't know. Anyway, it's spelled right there. Secretary General of the WMO, for basically tamping down the lunacy. Now, this comes from the Global Warming Policy Forum, the Climate Record. WMO Secretary General rejects climate doomsters and extremists. And this is actually translated from this Finnish newspaper or online newspaper article. I tried to translate it. Google would not comply. But regardless, we have the translations here. Speaking to Finland's financial newspaper, not going to try to pronounce that, translation, The Journal, on 6 September 2019, Petteri Talas called for cooler heads to prevail, saying that he does not accept arguments that the end of the world is at hand. These are quotes directly from him. It's not going to be the end of the world. The world is just becoming more challenging. In parts of the globe, living conditions are becoming worse, but people have survived in harsh conditions. I think that should be pretty freaking obvious. The cavemen made it. I think you're going to make it. He also says that Finnish discourse on climate change has become overly doom-laden. Quote, the atmosphere created by media has been provoking anxiety. The latest idea is that children are a negative thing. I'm worried for young mothers who are already under much pressure. This will only add to their burden. And anybody who's heard like AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, literally saying on her Instagram feed or something that people shouldn't have children. Now, there have been eugenicists, there have been, population control discussions for a long time. There is population control in countries like China. But to have people now linking climate change with you shouldn't have babies because climate is in pure insanity. I mean, you're talking about the end of the world. That's the end of the world, or at least in their minds. Moreover, contrary to much of what is heard in the media, he thinks that the solution to climate change does not require people to live ascetic lives. If you start to live like an Orthodox monk, he says, the world is not going to be saved. He stresses that standards of living should not be lowered. And he suggests that radical environmentalists are now a major problem. Quote, while climate skepticism has become less of an issue, now we're being challenged from the other side. Climate experts have been attacked by these people, and they claim that we should be much more radical. They are doomsters and extremists. They make threats. Much more radical action is demanded by Extinction Rebellion movement. They demand zero emissions by 2025 and honest climate information from governments. Now, that is just pure insanity. It's an impossibility. Making impossible demands is usually a sign that somebody has an ulterior motive. I can demand that all planes stop flying tomorrow, all I want, but it's unrealistic. It's not going to happen. And we all know why it's not going to happen. So you're not being part of the solution. You're being part of the problem. You're just basically shouting at the moon, hey, moon, stop coming up every night. See how that works out for you. My grandma used to say, wish in one hand and shit in the other and see which one gets full first. To Talas, the deep greens have been abusing the reports of the IPCC, cherry-picking parts that they think will support radical action. The IPCC report has been read in a similar way to the Bible. You try to find certain pieces or sections from which you can try to justify your extreme views. This resembles religious extremism. Now, I find it, kind of funny that he brings up the Bible, but at the same time, I've had to deal with many people who, use the Bible to justify their flat earth views. And as a person who was baptized and raised and did catechism in the Lutheran church, my Boy Scout troop was in a Lutheran church. My daughter is currently going to private school at that Lutheran church. I'm not anti-Bible, but I'm also not crazy. So I kind of see his, point there. Although he is critical of right-wing populists who do not accept any climate action, he warns of what might happen if fuel taxes are raised too far, noting the protests of the French Gilets jaunes And if you guys haven't heard about that, it was the Yellow Jacket movement over in France. That was pretty epic. Basically the French, tried to raise the gas tax because climate change, and literally people came out and started burning the freaking city down, literally. So, I mean, they can try all they like with this, pushing real hard on climate change. All they're going to get is fire and civil disobedience. Atalis hopes that the mainstream media will become more critical and hopes more for a diverse presentation of views, and argues that all sides should be interviewed. We should consider critically with reservations the thoughts of experts. Meaning, the climate change experts, they're not always right. The climate change denialists, they're not always right. Yellow vest, thank you very much, Maxwell. Yellow vest movement. I said, what did I say? Yellow jacket? My gosh, those are hornets in Sumter, South Carolina, where I live. But yeah, the yellow vest movement. If you missed that, boy, you missed a lot. Go look it up. There's plenty of video. And I agree, Mike D, that the Bible does not support the flat earth theory, but there are many who would argue with you because religion, because it's the word of God. But regardless, I interpret that a different way, the separation between heaven and earth. But regardless, the analogy is still right there. We're going to get to Soros's daughter in just a moment. Okay, hold your horses. Love pugs. That's hilarious. So, he brought up a group that I'd never heard of, Extinction Rebellion. And they're at rebellion.earth. You got to love that. I need to get a ClimateViewer.earth URL now that I see that, actually, for my maps. That would be nice. Fellow South Kakalakian in YouTube. Love you, mean it, bro. Only in the South, man. South Carolina is the greatest state in the whole USA, in my personal opinion. I've been all over this place, from Nebraska to Oregon to Arizona and back. And I'm not leaving anytime soon because the chicken is good and the people are better. And God, if you haven't had the barbecue, and I'm talking about barbecue, the noun, not the verb. But regardless, if you look at here, they've got, basically protest planned for October 7th through the 20th, mainly over in the UK, so in Scotland. So I don't really have to deal with their crap. And I never will, because I don't live in a big city. Thank God. My city's about 70,000 people. Pickens, you don't have to deal with that either. So, yeah, only in the big cities do you have to deal with the lunacy of these, mass climate, let's flip cars over and burn crap, or you talk about how everybody's going to die. But you go to The Truth section, and it's pretty interesting. They got this flag. So now that you see this, if you see this flag on the media in the future, you'll know what the Extinction Rebellion is. I'd seen this flag many times, had no clue what the hell it was. But you go to their truth section, and then you see the emergency. And I started looking through some of their things. A mass extinction event is underway. That sounds like what Greta Thunberg was talking about. And then, of course, it's linked to this paper, nature.com. Has the Earth's sixth mass extinction event already arrived? This was published 2011. And basically, paleontologists characterized mass extinctions as times when Earth loses more than 3/4 of its species in a geologically short interval, as has happened only 5 times in the past 540 million years or so. Biologists now suggest that a 6th mass extinction may be underway given the known species losses in the past few centuries or millennia. For those who don't know what millennia means, that means thousands of years. So in the last couple thousands of years, so last 2,000, 3,000 years, that's what they're talking about here, that we're in this mass extinction that's lasted at least 1,000 years to 3, 5. I don't know how many thousand years they're talking about here, but regardless, here we review how differences between fossil and modern data and the addition of recently available paleontological information influence our understanding of current extinction crisis. Our result confirmed that current extinction rates are higher than would be expected from the fossil record, highlighting the need for effective conservation measures. I'm all for conservation. I'm all for conserving the trees. I'm all for getting plastic out of the ocean. I'm all for, cleaning up dump tires, on the bottom of the ocean, all the trash that ends up in the ocean. I'm all for cleaning up real climate change. I am not for the CO2 based bullshit that I hear on a daily basis. I am not for this global warming because now we're going to have a one world order government scientific technocracy that's going to cram down my throats a whole bunch of laws. Like you can't burn wood in your wood stove. So to highlight how hysterical this climate strikeout was, I'm going to turn to my good buddy Mark Dice and just let him roll with it. Everybody pray for me I don't get a copyright strike. Mark, love you, mean it. Don't do it, bro.
They say the children are the future, but it may be best if the robots actually do take over. Because this is just a small sample of what happened at the climate strike on Friday, when George Soros puppeteered students across the country to skip class and march out in the streets in order to save the world from the weather.
Our world is already in flames. It's getting hotter. We can't breathe.
We are here because our parents trashed the planet, and it's up to our generation to save it.
Call us Generation Z, the last letter of the alphabet, because we are going to be the last generation to survive.
We do not have time to be polite. This is a revolution.
It doesn't matter how much we're taxed if we don't have an earth to live on.
We need to do more instead of having a corrupt president who won't acknowledge that the earth is literally dying.
We need to listen to our children because they totally get it.
Because every day of inaction drives more action from us!
If these are the future leaders of America, I'm gonna start dumping my trash in the ocean and praying that the world really does end in 12 years. There's plenty more madness to come in the rest of this video, but real quick, subscribe to my channel if you're new here, because if you are new here, I'm surprised you even found this video, because YouTube is censoring me from the recommended section for middle school and high school kids, so I guess we should expect them to believe in fantasies like Santa Claus and man-made climate change, but unfortunately, many of the college kids aren't any better educated. Take a listen to some of their questions and concerns at MSNBC's Climate in Crisis forum.
I'm 19 years old, and like so many people my age, I feel really visceral anxiety about climate change.
And minoring in women's and gender studies.
I'm a senior majoring in cinema studies.
I'm studying government theology.
I study empathy as communication.
Wow.
My pronouns are she, her, hers.
Environmental racism is a huge issue in America right now.
Considering the disproportionate impact of climate change on communities of color,
how will you regulate these corporate actions in order to fight environmental, racial, and socioeconomic injustice?
Socially constructed roles often put women at a disadvantage in preparing for climate change.
How would you work with farmers in Iowa and adjacent states with how they will reduce their impact on dead zones in the Gulf of Mexico?
Do you have any plans that center justice for Indigenous people as a means of combating climate change?
I am a Native American from the Warm Springs Confederated Tribes. Do you have a plan that serves Native communities?
We talked a lot about individual responsibility to change behavior like veganism, water waste, and plastic straw bans, all of which initiatives disproportionately affect disabled people and poor people.
The look on Cory Booker's face is just priceless. I mean, he's like, what have we created here? Why? Why am I here? I mean, damn it. Why do I have to listen to this shit? It's absolutely priceless. But, then the queen bee of them all, the crisis actor of the century, the, Puppet of the Year award goes to Greta Thunberg. Roll that beautiful bean footage, Mark.
Even Cory Booker's like, what the hell have I gotten myself into? The highlight of this latest circus happened yesterday at the United Nations when 16-year-old Greta Thunberg, who the Democrats consider to be a world-renowned expert on climate change, blamed climate change for ruining her childhood.
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet, you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words. And yet, I'm one of the lucky ones. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all...
There's that word, mass extinction, sounding familiar to any papers I read to you on nature.com or extinctionrebellion.com. Anyway.
All you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you?
Well, you're right about one thing. You shouldn't be here, and you should be back in school. Shame on your parents. I think this Scooby-Doo meme perfectly illustrates exactly what's going on with this girl. The best part is, at another point in the day, the camera happened to be on Greta when President Trump entered the room. And the look on her face is absolutely priceless.
That's the look of, oh shit, there he is. Anyway, finish watching the video there. Meet their new leader on Mark Dice's channel. So I've already heard it said at least 50 times by different individuals watching this live stream. Propaganda, propaganda. Ding, ding, ding. You all win the award. This is propaganda. As we can see over here on ClimateViewer.com, if you go to the menu at the top of the page and you click on propaganda, you will go to propaganda, fake news, and activism. And Yoda said it best. Basically, fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. The point I'm trying to make here with this page is that people use slave speak to create this mental plantation where you just happily lap up everything that they tell you. And, you know, Alice in Wonderland being one of the greatest examples of this, you know, 1984 obviously talks about it. I have an entire series called Slave Speak TV that you can watch that'll really break it down for you. But what I want you to take away from this is FUD. Everything that we're hearing about in the climate change debate is fear, uncertainty, and doubt. FUD is a tactic that is used in sales, marketing, public relations, politics, and propaganda. FUD is generally a strategic attempt to influence perception by disseminating negative and dubious or false information. An individual firm, for example, might use FUD to invite unfavorable opinions or speculation about a competitor's product, to increase the general estimation of switching costs among current customers, or to maintain leverage over a current business partner who could potentially become a rival. The term originated to describe disinformation tactics in the computer hardware industry, but has since been more broadly used. Now, this was originally IBM, and they would, you know, put out a whole bunch of information about Intel and other companies saying, you know, don't use their stuff. Same thing happened with Nikola Tesla and, you know, AC versus DC. And what's his nuts would be out there literally frying animals in the streets going, AC current kills. And, you know, of course, the whole world's AC now and only your car is DC now. But regardless, FUD is a manifestation of the appeal to fear. And fear is the greatest motivator that is used today in all advertising, all mainstream media, news outlets, all political organizations. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It was used in the MK Ultra experiments to do mind control, to keep somebody in a constant state of fear, uncertainty, and doubt in order to wipe their brains clean and then reprogram them. And as you can clearly see by Greta's, reaction, her crisis acting at the UN. And how the hell did she get in there? I would love to go to the UN and talk about the real problem with climate change, and that's the climate changers. The 100 years of people screwing with the Arctic, the individuals who are, deeply invested in, melting the poles so that they can get to the oil and steering hurricanes and all of that sort of stuff. I'd love to give a speech on that at the UN. Where do I apply, or do I need somebody to help me over there? Oh yeah, wait, there's always that handler. And with Greta Thunberg, Greta is a media created phenomenon to push a political agenda. Greta herself knows very little about earth science, natural systems, or carbon cycles. Rather, Greta is being escorted around the U.S. in an elaborate dog and pony show by her handler, far-left activist Louisa Marie Neuber. I hope you guys can see that. This is from my Facebook page. If you guys haven't friended me already, it's facebook.com/resonated. That's REZN, the number 8D. Holler at your boy. Louisa Marie Neubauer is a promoter of Agenda 2030 in Germany, promoter of the Paris Agreement, a member of the Alliance 90, and Louisa Marie Neubauer is a youth ambassador of One, an international lobbying and campaigning organization. One is financed by wealthy liberals, including Bono, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and George Soros, who controls most mainstream media, and of course change.org. They literally put the change in climate change. Change.org. This is why Greta's words contain admonitions, identity politics, and empty statistics, but no practical advice. Her role is not to influence anthropogenic climate impacts. It is to frighten Americans prior to the 2020 presidential election. And there's a picture of her handler right there. And that, this is pretty priceless. I got some great comments on this. If you want to see something funny, I mean, that pretty much sums it up right there. I mean, if it weren't so bad, it would be even funnier. But I mean, there are people that literally believe this shit. Climate change agendas, Greta Thunberg. Oh my God. So this is, basically the way it's going, they've got these actors out there scaring people, using fear, uncertainty, and doubt. The world is going to end. I mean, damn, that should scare everybody, right? I mean, come on. If you're not triggered right now to just go out and burn your house down and live in a teepee, and I can say that because I am literally related to Tecumseh. Just found out from my mom, who did the history on that. So but I don't come on here going, as a Native American, I believe that climate change this or that. Identity politics is absolute shit. Anybody that says different has got their head firmly planted in their rectum. Anyway, globalnews.ca, commentary, climate change discussions need to get back to science. And, I would add to that, and history, because most people do not know the history. They don't understand the history, and history is not taught, especially when it comes to, the end of the world, or, anything to do with what this is really about. And this is about control. If you go to ClimateViewer.com, I suggest you check out the Green New Deal, Agenda 2030, Technocracy and Geoengineering. It's a great, primer on the fear porn to control the world, what it's about. If you have not heard of technocracy, you really need to understand the mind of a technocrat to understand and see through the propaganda and understand what the motivation is behind it. And I really go through this in graphic detail. Climate models do not account for the solar cycle, galactic cosmic rays, aerosols, clouds, or water vapor. And I think that now that they are actually going to include these in the upcoming IPCC reports, that's why we have a guy from the WMO who sits on the IPCC panel going, wait, you climate extremists, you climate terrorists, you guys might want to tone down the rhetoric, because when the next report comes out, it's going to look a hell of a lot different than the last one. So buckle your seatbelts. I believe the next report's due in 2022. Damn, that's a long way away, but it's kind of like waiting for Game of Thrones, but that was a big letdown too. Don't get me sidetracked. But regardless, you can go through these. If you guys have not heard about, all this stuff, the actual Green New Deal fact, transforming our world, the 2030 agenda for sustainable development, Agenda 21, and the Paris Agreement, COP21. This is the vast scope of what their agenda is. And it is highly coincidental that you got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the climate extremist crew saying we have 12 years before the end of the world. And that's in, 2018 to 2019. Let's see, plus 12. Oh, wait, that's 2030. So it's not a coincidence that this 12 years keeps coming up. It's not a coincidence that they're upping the fear porn factor. It's not a coincidence that they're bringing out their crisis actors, because at the end of the day, this is about the climate changers and water wars, technocracy, geoengineering, and replacing the water cycle. And if you guys don't know what technocracy is, I have a great presentation for you. You can check it out on ClimateViewer.com. You can actually flip through this. What is a technocrat? Technocracy is a movement started in the 1930s by engineers, scientists, and technicians that proposed replacement of capitalism with an energy-based economy. George Orwell believed that technocracy would result in a scientific dictatorship. Technocrats seek to control all facets of global life through policies and technological methods. And if you have not read his book, Patrick Wood, author of Technocracy Rising, please go buy the book, Technocracy Rising. I don't make anything off that. Just a friend of mine. Met him when I went out to speak at a G. Edward Griffin event conveniently titled Global Warming, an Inconvenient Lie. And technocracy is really at the root of all of this. It's about creating a group of individuals that dictate to the world. Let's pick a random person. Kevin Baldwin in YouTube chat. Kevin, you've used a lot of energy watching YouTube today, and you had your Xbox on, and your air conditioner was going really, really strong all night long and today, and you washed 2 loads of clothes. So we're going to shut your power off until you come back to a balanced load for the next 4 hours. Be well. Now, if you want to live in that world, keep signing up for this climate change Agenda 2030 New Green Deal bullshit, George Soros puppeted propaganda. I, for one, do not. The flip side of this is, what are they saying as a last-ditch effort? What are we going to do to really fix climate change, since nobody wants to stop polluting the environment? Everybody is against pollution, I would think. I don't think that anybody out there would be against pollution. I personally am against pollution. I track it, I map it. You can go to ClimateViewer 3D and you can see real pollution. Go to history and science, go to energy and pollution, and you can see 10 most radioactive places on Earth. You can see all the nuclear explosion sites around the globe, Bayou Corn sinkhole where people drilling literally ruined an entire freaking town, black tides, worst oil spills in the world. and where they occurred. I'm against pollution. Most people are. Coal ash ponds, coal power plants. You just start adding it all up. Yes, this is a problem, but the narrative that they're driving is not a realistic one, to say the least. If you want to do something about climate change, then you might want to start dealing with the real problems like plastic pollution in the ocean, all the nuclear waste. This is plastic pollution in the ocean worldwide. All these red spots. We've got the Pacific Gyre. In case you haven't ever heard of it, it's the big giant garbage patch floating in the ocean. My friend George Stiller and I are currently working on figuring out what actual effect is plastic having on global temperatures and all of that, because it's something that's not even being discussed. And when George initially reached out to 3 major prominent climate change scientists and asked, has anybody ever figured it out, are there any published papers on how plastic in the ocean is affecting global temperatures or ocean temperatures, the answer was 0. So all of these people with their doomsday predictions, they're really just, I think that they're making their doomsday predictions because they want control of your life. And it's all about control. Who can get the most control? And in order for people to give up their rights, usually there's a whole lot of fear put out beforehand and propaganda. So that's what I see going on. And the worst of all is, at the end of the day, their last-ditch effort is geoengineering. Now, geoengineering is already going on through aircraft and ship tracks. We see it every day over our houses. If you look at ClimateViewer 3D, you can see it over the ocean. Making clouds, bad thing. Weather modification, been going on for 100 years. Another bad thing. But people really, they don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about the real history of people screwing with the planet. And that's what's got me concerned. So, those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. And that's where we are today. So we cannot afford to gamble on geoengineering to achieve net zero. But gamble they will. That is just the nature of things. And I don't think that that's going to, change anytime soon. So I hope that you guys have found this video informative. I hope that, everybody take it easy on Greta. Don't attack ideas. Or attack ideas. Don't attack people. She's just a kid. Of course, she's being, in my opinion, badly abused, mentally abused, which is really sad. And there are many children. They're talking about climate change at all the public schools, and it's all one side. It's all directed at scaring the hell out of kids, and they're not talking about anything real. They're not talking about eutrophication from runoff of fertilizer. I mean, people actually are affected by that. You go to the beach and suddenly the whole beach is poisoned water, and you got green and red tides and all that sort of stuff. Let's talk about and handle climate change today, not the CO2 based, the globe is going to warm up until we all die and there's a mass extinction, bullshit propaganda. I think that if we handle pollution today and deforestation today, then there will not be a global warming to worry about in the future. But regardless, I would be remiss not to bring up a couple of my good friends right here. If you haven't checked them out, check out Adapt 2030 on YouTube. Myanmar Living is the username. Check out Ice Age Farmer, another one. And finally, check out Oppenheimer Ranch Project, because this grand solar minimum is really what's going to come up. And this is what's going to come up in the new IPCC reports, that if they actually look at solar cycles and they realize where the sun is going, and the magnetic pole reversals and all the issues that are going on, that climate change is a very complex problem that nobody really understands. We don't have all the variables, and really nobody's talking about any of it in the mainstream media. So you're going to have to rely on people like I just mentioned here. And these are some pretty good ones right here: Ice Age Farmer, Adapt 2030, Suspicious Observer, and Oppenheimer Ranch Project. I don't focus on the global solar minimum. My focus is very broad, but I like to see the big picture. That's why I am, my logo is an eyeball, and I am a climate viewer. I want to see the macro, not the micro. I want to take it all in and try to make sense of it and help you understand it. So I hope that this video has helped you understand a little bit more about the climate change agenda, why the climate strikeout and Greta Thunberg fear porn and fear, uncertainty, and doubt is being pushed so heavily right now. Because there's an election coming up, and they want to paint Trump as this, he doesn't believe in climate change, so vote Democrat or the world's going to end. It's really sad, but I believe that people are much smarter than that, especially in today's age. Most people are getting their information from other sources. The mainstream media is already dead. Many YouTube channels get more views than CNN, Fox, any of these guys. So it's getting harder for them to gatekeep the truth. The truth will find a way. And it's through, dedicated individuals like you that are, going to make sure that that happens. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And you are that small group of dedicated individuals that want to understand the truth, and you will be the educators in your local community to help others see through the propaganda and understand, the big picture. And whether you think Trump is owned by bankers or whatever your opinions are of Trump, I don't really care. This is not a political channel. I am not, left. I am not right. I am a rugged individualist. And I believe if everybody takes that opinion, that you are a rugged individualist, that you take the Boy Scout motto, whether you're a girl or not, and you are always prepared, then this will not affect you. And you will be prepared for whatever, because this could be a very bumpy road ahead. Whether it's, global warming activists going absolutely lunatics, whether the globe burns up, whether nothing happens at all and we have an ice age, you need to be prepared any way, this ship goes. So stay critical, keep thinking, stay calm, avoid the fear porn, try to get information from reliable sources. And please continue to support this channel. I would greatly appreciate your support by giving a monthly donation or a single donation on PayPal. Again, if you're new here, please hit the subscribe button. Jim Lee Climate Viewer. Search for Climate Viewer on YouTube. And, check out ClimateViewer.com. ClimateViewer.org, which is Climate Viewer Maps, and WeatherModificationHistory.com, the most accurate, comprehensive website ever devised to give you the full scope and all the evidence you need to make the argument that people screwing with the climate, the sky, and the ionosphere, all of that is more of a danger to climate change and deforestation and all of these sorts of things than CO2 will ever be. So thank you guys for tuning in. Sharing is caring. I'd appreciate it if you share this video. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you like, what you dislike. If you disagree with me, point out my flaws. I can take it. And just remember that this is a very complex issue, and a lot of people are very heated right now. So above all things, remember to attack ideas, not people. If this video resonates with you, leave me a comment because I love hearing from y'all. First time here, be sure to subscribe and click the bell. The bell doesn't always work, so come to ClimateViewer.com and sign up for our newsletter. Remember, it would be impossible for me to do this without your support, so please join my Patreon or buy me a coffee on PayPal. And always, attack ideas, not people.
Kids are impressionable. That's why here at this station, we watch the programs and commercials your child watches carefully. He may see bad guys, but not in the role of heroes. And he'll learn that crime doesn't pay. Because your child's welfare is our concern, too. That's part of our code.
Better than anything you can get without a prescription. Anything. It's the best.